key business processes and functions enabled specify the business processes enabled by the application. More organizations that are sophisticated include information that is normally developed as part of a business architecture effort or the business process and functional requirement stage of a major business application project. Once the first two attribute classes are gathered, a diagram can be created. Many companies that have large numbers of applications greater than 50 add more details to the application type attribute to simplify the views, thus facilitating understanding and gaining consensus agreement. Applications can be aggregated into higher-level categories, such as HR or finance. A more esoteric use for this type of diagram is as a sanity check during business continuity planning. Typically, this includes prioritizing the order in which applications will be recovered during a disaster, because it is unlikely that all applications will come back up at once. The company can use this diagram to highlight functionality that will not be available in an application because of dependencies on other applications that may be lower on the restoration priority list. Applications with the highest numbers of service requests, trouble tickets, availability issues, and response time problems are all candidates for further analysis and investment. Sophisticated companies look across these attributes, identifying applications that have issues in multiple areas, and use this as the basis for a compelling argument to change the application. Once an application's business value and technical condition have been determined, a higher-level portfolio analysis can be conducted. Leading organizations periodically look at classes of applications and plot them based on their business value and technical condition. For applications ending up in the lower left quadrant have low business value and are in poor technical condition. They are candidates for retirement, consolidation, or replacement. Applications in the lower right quadrant have high business value, but are in poor technical condition. They are candidates for re-engineering and modernization. Applications in the upper left quadrant are in excellent technical condition, but have low business value. They are candidates for re-evaluation and repositioning. For applications in the upper right quadrant have high business value, and are in excellent technical condition. Counter to conventional wisdom, these applications are still worth worrying about. They must be carefully maintained and evolved, otherwise, they will end up in the lower left quadrant over time. Cost is a key class of application attributes that must be tracked. Ongoing costs is the expense required to keep an application running. These costs typically include items like operations, for example, a data center costs associated with running an application, such as personnel, systems management tools, facility costs like power, and process refinement. Another is maintenance. Maintenance is fees paid to the application software vendor, as well as maintenance fees associated with underlying components such as databases, operating systems, servers, and storage. Licensing is another. Licensing costs associated with purchasing the application and periodically upgrading licenses as appropriate. These costs should also include any underlying infrastructure licenses, like database licenses that the application requires. Depreciation is now recognized as ongoing costs. Some application project costs are capitalized, and their depreciation should be taken into account as part of the costs of the application. Financial Accounting Standards Board updates, FASB 1134, include capitalizing some or all of the costs to retire an asset. Fixed versus variable costs, a useful way to analyze costs to highlight for business executives which costs vary and why versus which costs remain fixed. Direct versus indirect costs. Some progressive companies recognize there are many indirect costs associated with an application, such as the revenue and productivity impacts of downtime. It is not worth calculating all these financials for most companies, but companies that need to be very complete may need to do this. Costs to change or upgrade the application. As upgrade requirements become better understood and scoped, these costs should be included in the overall cost of the application. Replacement costs. In some cases, it is important to know what it would cost to replace a system so that ongoing costs can be properly compared to replacement costs and effective decisions can be made. Slide 11. Regarding the risk profile, business and its executives are becoming increasingly aware of risk and are focusing on risk management. Applications exhibit many different kinds of risk, which should be identified, categorized, assessed, mitigated, and monitored. Primary application risk-related attributes include security. Applications vary widely in their security capabilities, which should be tracked as part of the overall portfolio. This attribute can be as basic as 3 levels: very secure, secure, and not secure. Companies with significant security concerns are much more sophisticated not only about application security but also about an overall information security program. Business continuity. Applications should be categorized from a business continuity priority setting perspective. Ideally, a simple table showing applications that will be restored first versus later can be compared to the overall application portfolio diagram, to ensure that proper priorities and expectations have been set. As with security, business continuity represents an entire set of disciplines and an overall program. Applications play a key role in business continuity planning, but are only part of the picture. Vendor viability. The viability of the software vendor that created the application and any professional services firms that may be needed to maintain the application is of concern. In addition, some software packages are tightly tied to specific operating systems, databases, and hardware. The vendors of these underlying products must also be tracked from a business viability perspective. Regulatory compliance. Many application changes are driven by the need to keep up with regulators, like FDA, FERC and FAA. The level of regulatory compliance is an important attribute to track for applications and information subject to regulations, such as the privacy laws and guidelines of various countries. Technical condition. The technical condition attributes discussed previously feed into the risk analysis, since poor technical condition increases the risk of the application failing. Human resources focuses on the fact that most organizations have a very small group of people who understand a particular business process well, and understand how a particular application automates that process. As applications age, so do the people with these skill sets, creating a long-term risk that nobody will be around to support an aging application. Project and program. As applications require modifications, projects and programs are developed that carry their own risks of failure, running over budget, missing deadlines, and possibly introducing defects into the operational ecosystem. Privacy. The increasing focus on privacy will likely drive many companies to raise this attribute out of the regulatory compliance bucket, and make it a standalone attribute that is tracked. Information risk. The information created by applications has potential quality and legal retention issues that might need to be taken into account in a risk profile. Rolling these risks into an overall risk rating is still very much more art than science. In fact, most companies have not gone far down the path of profiling the risk of an application. However, risk awareness at executive levels and regulatory issues will force many organizations to develop this aspect of their application portfolios.